Welcome to the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I'm Deborah Herlax Enos, a small town girl turned TV nutritionist and healthy living expert. I design health programs for the average guy or gal, including those average guys named Metallica. On September 1st, 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I asked every oncologist the same question, why did I get cancer? But none of my doctors had good answers for me. I wanted answers, and that's why I started this podcast. I want to help you to lower your cancer risk and provide self-care tips for those in the battle. I'm getting answers, and I want to share them with you. Welcome to today's podcast, where I'm actually a guest on somebody else's podcast. I got to tell you, it was so much fun. So I was interviewed by Kristen and Raquel, the two founders of the Functional Moms podcast, health and wellness tips for women over the age of 40. And it was just my great joy to be on this podcast. And I have to tell you, they asked me some really interesting questions. One of the questions, why do I think I got cancer? Especially since I was an early adopter of not even using deodorants with aluminum and other toxic chemicals in there. So that was an interesting question. And then their final question is, what would I do in the future to not get sick again, be it cancer or anything else? And I have to tell you, my response was a non-nutrition response, and they were really surprised. So tune in to the podcast today. I hope you'll also support these two fabulous women and follow their podcast. Give it a listen. Hope you enjoy.
This episode is for anyone looking to reduce their risk of cancer. It is also for people who are currently battling cancer. Prepare to be inspired.
Our guest today is Deborah Herlax Enos, a certified nutritionist, nationally known healthy living expert, and recent breast cancer thriver. She is also a host of the popular podcast, Why Did I Get Cancer?
Deborah was living her best life and was the on-air healthy living expert at Q13 Fox News in Seattle. She traveled nationwide as a professional wellness speaker. She is a nutritionist who ran half marathons, did hot yoga, ate mainly organic, and was an early adapter of not wearing deodorants with aluminum. So naturally, Deborah was shocked to be diagnosed with breast cancer on September 1st, 2020.
Deborah, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We would love to hear your story, especially how you handled getting diagnosed with cancer after living such a healthy lifestyle.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. And I got to tell you, I was ticked as heck that I got cancer. I was the person who was ordering the organic chicken salad, dressing on the side, running half marathons, not wearing deodorant, being really stinky around my friends and family, because I knew, I'm a holistic nutritionist. So I've been in this field for 30 plus years, and I've been to the classes, I've done the research, get my continuing education credits. I knew that I was making all the right decisions. So when I got called back for a wonky mammogram, I just thought, I've got dense breast tissue. And that has brought me back many times. Women with dense breast tissue, it's just like we're used to getting the call back. And then when the doctor called and said, I'm so sorry to tell you, you have breast cancer. And I said, I actually don't. And I just left the phone on the counter. My husband picked it up and I just went for a walk. I was mad as all get out because I don't know how this could have possibly happened to me. All the things that I had done to protect myself.
Yeah. I mean, I would feel the same way. And I understand the dense breast thing because I have that and I've been called back many times too. And I try to always be calm about it. But yeah, I guess it's always in the back of your mind, something could be going on.
Right. Yeah. We're used to the callback, right? And so my first thought was, of course, it goes to, am I going to need chemo? Am I going to lose my hair? Am I doing radiation? And then I texted a girlfriend. I had 3 or 4 girlfriends who were kind of just tracking with me as far as me going back and getting the test. And I just texted her, I just said one word, cancer. And so she told the 2 other friends who were tracking with me, and they showed up at my house 5 hours later with a bottle of really good Chardonnay and pink bracelets. And they said, we're not going to take these off until you're cancer free, which was an amazing level of support because I had no idea how to navigate cancer. I have almost zero family history. And I'm also super grateful and blessed. I literally have never walked through cancer with anybody in my life. I just didn't know anybody who had it. And one of the girlfriends, her name's Kathy, had recently had breast cancer and had finished her battle. And I remember her, holding up a glass of Chardonnay and saying, okay, your life is about to change. Oh my gosh. I don't want my life to change. I love my life. Yeah, I'm keeping my life. And I just started sobbing. And that was a pretty dark
How long
day.
ago was that?
Yeah. September of 2020. And then I actually ended up having 4 surgeries. They couldn't get it out. It was kind of sprinkled throughout my breast. And so I had 2 lumpectomies, a mastectomy, and a reconstruction.
Wow. I got to say, I was listening to an episode that you had on your podcast. You had a guest, Josh Axe. Yeah, Dr. Axe.
That's Dr. Axe. Yeah.
And, I hear you speaking about these women that would come out. And I know that you're a woman of faith and of great faith. And you had said when you were sharing with Dr. Axe how you were mad at God for 3 days because you said, I did all the things. I volunteer. You called your friend, who she's one of your prayer warriors, right? One of your girlfriends. And you were like, what is it? I did all the things. I am a great woman of faith. Like, how could this happen? And she said, it sounds like you have a transactional relationship with God. And this is the part that for me, I got to tell you, Deborah, like this, I have no, we're all.
You're making me cry. Oh my gosh.
This part, when you said this in this podcast, when she said that to you and you were like, oh yeah. And then your thoughts changed from, if I do good, everything is going to be good. He is going to bless me. And you changed that perspective change to, yes, he is going to bless me, but he is going to bless me in his way. And I tell you, thank you for sharing that, because I want to tell my kids that, because that perspective, that's why you have an amazing podcast now.
Thank you. It was shocking to hear my friend Deanne say that to me. And I was mad at her too. Because I thought, I grew up in the 70s and 80s where women were good girls. And if you're a good girl, you get rewarded. That's just the way it works. So I transferred that, being a good girl, to my relationship with God. So if I'm good, you're going to reward me with good things. But they were my ideas of good things, not his ideas of good things. That has been a massive shift in my life, in my career, and probably best of all, my relationships, including my relationship with him.
Yeah. I do think a lot in terms of, is this happening to me or is this happening for me? How I think of it is like the experience that I'm going to have. And I think that, in that deep place, just from the talk that I gathered from when you were talking to Josh, is like, you decided at a certain point that this was going to serve other people.
Yes. And I'm a teacher, and a good day for me is going to bed and thinking, wow, I was able to give somebody some coaching today about, how to lower their cholesterol or whatever it is. Or, one of our kids, I was talking to our youngest daughter, Cece, yesterday about grounding and about how important it is to walk around on grass for at least 5 minutes a day. It helps to thin your blood, which is a good thing. So, that just made me so happy we all want to give wisdom, right?
Absolutely.
And so, yes, hearing her advice was really hard, but it has completely changed my relationship with God. And I think one of the things that I love the most is how it's changed my relationship that I have toward me and toward others. And so I don't put people in a box anymore. I don't put myself in a box, because I think that is kind of transactional. Okay, you behave this way or you vote this way, so I'm going to put you over here in this box, and life is complicated and complex. It's good. And so I'm just a big believer in letting people be who they are and just figuring it out as you go along.
Wow. I was curious, how did you decide even what treatment route to go? Because as someone that came from the natural health space and, doing all these preventative things, was that difficult for you?
Yeah. I say I have regrets. I'm not a person that likes to live with regrets. So I need to kind of think about what that languaging is looking like. But I do feel like I was overtreated, and I didn't know then what I know now because of my podcast. And so that's one of the reasons why I love my podcast so much, is I feel like it's the podcast I wish I would have heard when I was going through it, and what I would have done. And I'm talking about me. I'm not disseminating medical advice, because as my oncologist would say, every person's cancer journey is different. But for my journey, I wish I would have pumped the brakes a little bit, gotten some additional opinions, and just slowed down a bit. But it was COVID. I just wanted it out of my body. And I thought there was only one way to do that, which was surgery. And now that I've been interviewing experts, I think there are some natural things that we could probably be doing that can help boost our immune system and support our bodies so that maybe we don't have cells that go rogue in the first place. But, there's been some interesting people like Chris Beat Cancer. He's been a guest on my podcast. And Dr. Lee Aaron Keneally, author of The Cancer Revolution, I think is her book. And there's so many new modalities out there that I would have liked to have given some of them a chance.
Well, thank goodness you've created this podcast and this platform for others that they're on the journey and that, hopefully don't want to be in that place, but now they have this resource and that you wish you had, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yep.
Absolutely. And I think also like that cancer is something that you constantly hearing about. And what I also notice is just like in my area alone, like there's so many new urgent cares that are popping up, new medical. Every time I see there's the new medical building that's being built, I'm like, wow, I feel like this neighborhood is expecting a lot of more sick people. Like what is going on? Right?
Yeah. That's really interesting perspective. Yeah. What do they know that we don't know? Yeah.
Right.
Do we want to know?
Right. And so I think about that I think like cancer is like the biggest, scariest thing. Like I think when you talk to most people, that's the one main thing that they're afraid of is cancer.
I agree with you. Yeah. And cancer rates these days, especially for young people, I mean, it's just shocking. Yeah. Right. And it's a little terrifying, but knowledge is power. So what's going on with our young people?
Right. What do you think is going on?
Well, after having multiple conversations with, people who are so much smarter than I am, I think there's a lot of things. I think, we really rely and are addicted to processed foods. We are addicted to our phones and other types of screens. So we're really sedentary, which is not good. I feel like we've lost our communities during COVID. And so we've got a lot of people out there who are really lonely. And I had an amazing podcast with the creator of the Radical Remission Project, Dr. Kelly A. Turner. And she was talking about laughter. And you know what? I don't laugh usually when I'm alone. I laugh in the presence of other people. And she talked about this amazing study. And they had breast cancer cells in a petri dish. Then they dropped in oxytocin. Oxytocin is created when, we're laughing or we're in community or, we're having an intimate experience.
Yep.
I'm trying to keep it clean, ladies. And they dropped oxytocin into this petri dish and the breast cancer cells died. Amazing information. So, I guess you'd have to ask yourself the question, how much am I laughing every day? And if I laugh more in the presence of friends or going to a movie, if I'm by myself, like what can you do to laugh more each day? And, I think that these are all factors. Also, let's consider the EMF, issue. In one of my conversations on my podcast with a cancer and oncology expert, she was saying, in the fine print, when you buy a cell phone, it says, don't let this touch your body.
Does it really? Because I didn't realize that.
It does.
Wow.
It does. So when you see people with their phones and they stick them in their bra or they stick them in their back pocket, she was saying that in the research she's read with the increase in rectal colon cancer, there is an EMF link, people putting their cell phones in their back pockets.
Yeah. So there are so many things, right? So
there's so many things.
How do we, I guess, manage it without stressing ourselves out too much about all the things too?
Well, and it's a great question because if we give out too much information, I think you can get really paralyzed with like, where do I start? Well, screw it. There's too much. So I'm just not going to start anywhere. So I think where I would start would be sleep. And protecting your sleep. That's when your body clears out the junk. It clears out the amyloid plaque in your brain. You reset, muscle and nerve cells, and your body is really focused on, again, just like cleaning and clearing things out. So how do you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night? Well, you start with maybe getting a Wi-Fi router kill switch. So you kill the Wi-Fi to your bedroom. And when you hear the C word, tired going at night in your sleep area, what happens is you don't make as much melatonin. When your body's not naturally making enough melatonin, you don't sleep as well. And there's also been some really great, well-researched studies with shift workers, women, and breast cancer. And because, again, they're off on their cycle as far as they're working when it's dark and sleeping when it's light, there is a higher uptick in breast cancer for women in those populations. So, what can we do to protect our sleep? Don't have your cell phone charging in your bedroom. Get a regular clock, instead of using your cell phone. When I travel, and I travel a fair amount, I take towels out of the bathroom. I always get extra towels when I check in, and I cover, the clock radio and the this and the that. And I really make sure I cover. I wear a sleep mask at night to really darken things. And so I'm a very light sensitive person. And so I live in Seattle, Washington. Right now, my husband's mowing the lawn at 10 o'clock at night because it's still light out. And so that is hard because, the light starts hitting us again at 4:30 in the morning. So we're a lot like Alaska in the summer. And so it's, you got to figure out how to manage your light at night. And that means screens and, of course, outdoor light. So that's where I'd start.
It's true. Yeah. There are so many things that are impacting our sleep that we didn't have years ago that we just didn't think about. So often I'll see my kids, like they'll have their phones next to their nightstand. I'm like, no, don't have that by your head all night. So these are good tips to keep in mind.
I think one of the things that is very hard in terms of protecting your sleep is, the stories that you have roaming around in your head that can keep you from sleeping. I think that, I can do all those things, but I'm just like, my chatterbox is like off on a rant. And I know I have a history of anxiety and ADHD. I have a lot of energy, like whatever you wanted to label me. But I think that's been the hardest part. I think of you hear so many people like taking like things to help them sleep, like drugs to help them sleep. That's a huge thing. And so I think that I don't know, I've never had cancer, but you probably have so many stories, like forecasts that you're going through that you have to, you think about your family, like you just have all these stories that you have to put a screeching halt to. And I think it was also in that interview that you did with Dr. Axe when you said that you started saying like, I'm going to sleep. I sleep well. And it was like just that. I think it's like the neuroplasticity, right? Like,
right. And it works. I'm telling you, I was a Ritalin kid. I have the tape going in my head all the time, CD, whatever. And getting a handle on my brain at night has proven to be challenging. So there's two things that I do now, actually three things. One, I quit drinking water about 3 hours before bed because, I'm at that age. I don't want to get up in the middle of the night to have to go to the bathroom. So that has been a real helpful game changer for me. So I'll just take sips. Like, I'm not drinking, I'm holding up a glass of water. I'm not drinking a whole glass of water an hour before bed. And then secondly, there's two techniques that I have just kind of created that have worked for me. One is I prophesy over myself and I'll get into bed and I'll just say, oh, you're so tired. You're already asleep. You're a great sleeper. You are, crushing the sleep game. So I'll just kind of do that. And if that doesn't work, I actually start to rehearse all of the miracles in my life. And so I'll go back to, and it could be just something little like, oh my gosh, I was going to this concert and I got a parking spot right in front, just little things like that. But I've had some other health things where I'm just like, wow, God, you really saw me through. And I remember being in that waiting room and I was waiting for the results of my latest scan and you were there for me. And I just start rehearsing miracles. And I'm telling you, I am out in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it totally, I feel like it just changes my cells from being one of like rehearsing the day and kind of like, oh man, I didn't do that. And I didn't get that email out. And, maybe I could have been a little nicer on this phone call to it just like shifts me at a cellular level to one of just great gratitude and appreciating the miracles around me. Like I might even get in bed and just think about all the bald eagles that I saw today. I mean like that. And it soothes me. So I've learned to kind of soothe myself at night versus get myself agitated.
Right. Like giving yourself a bedtime story.
I love that. Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to start using that. Thanks. That's good.
And so then that compounded with all the other things you're saying, like make sure your room is dark and, like those things really help too.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting new blinds are expensive, but a sleep mask is $20. So
yeah, that works.
if I'm traveling and I forgot my sleep mask, I will literally just take a washcloth from the bathroom and put it over my eyes. It works. So these don't have to be expensive fixes. I want to be really aware of that. And I don't want people to say, well, yeah, that works for you because, you have X amount in the bank. That's not where I want to come from with this. What I want to say is let's start with the basics. And the basics might be sleeping better, sleeping more, staying off screens at least an hour before bed, because that does impact your melatonin production. But also, can you move more each day? We do have a sedentary lifestyle. So can you put an alert on your phone and every hour you get up and, maybe you're doing some yoga stretches or you're walking around your apartment or if you have a yard, walking around your yard. Okay. If you've been around for any length of time, I'm not a fan of EMFs, electromagnetic fields, or frequencies, but I'm a fan of my cell phone. Yes, I use my cell phone way too much. I'm on my iPad way too much. So here's what I'm doing is I'm learning to manage technology because I want to be a really healthy person. I don't want to be around excess radiation. And this is why I'm a big fan of Wave Block. And one of the things I love about Wave Block is they're educators. They're educating people on how to take protective measures to still use technology, but just protect their bodies and their children's. I didn't realize this. I was on a Wave Block phone call the other day, and they were telling me that children or kids, the small ones, their skulls absorb 10 times the radiation that an adult fully formed skull will absorb. And that in other countries, like European countries, and I can't remember all of them, but they actually ban Wi-Fi in nurseries and kindergartens. So what a great idea, because the kids' skulls are just not fully formed yet. Okay, so here is what I do to protect myself. First of all, I turn my Wi-Fi router off at night. If you go to the WaveBlock website, which is WaveBlock, they have a whole educational section, and the top EMF emitting devices, cell phones, earbuds, or things like that, and Wi-Fi routers. So I'm trying to manage those. One of the ways I manage the radiation on my listening device is I use the WaveBlock tape that goes around the device. It doesn't impact me hearing at all. And what it does, according to the research by WaveBlock, it knocks radiation down by 90+%. So if you have a listening device on each ear, where do you think that modem is meeting? The modem is your head. So you want to knock down radiation as much as you possibly can. So go check out WaveBlock. Again, I really encourage you to read some of their education. And if you use the code ENOS10, you'll get 10% off of your purchase. And do your own due diligence, but it's a fascinating topic. Educate yourself, protect your kids, enjoy.
I know. I've been working on that, just trying to get outside more. I've noticed so much of the year I'll spend too much time inside, and I know I feel better. I feel calmer. My anxieties decreases. Like, it's something about being in nature is so powerful.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. And I just had an interesting conversation with a guest a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I was just in Chicago. Our oldest daughter, Jordan, just graduated from University of Chicago. And we were at our hotel. We were on the 29th floor. And this expert was all about grounding. And I said, I felt just like wacky for 5 nights. Like I just didn't feel like myself. And he's like, well, here's why. Did you walk in any grass? I'm like, nope, my foot didn't touch grass or dirt for 5 days. And he was talking about the power of, again, being in nature. You don't have to go for a run. You could just find a park, walk around a couple of trees, and you can feel better.
But
yeah. And you don't need a ton of time either. It could be short. That's the other thing I would get hung up on. I'd think, oh, I don't have enough time to do that,
Right. Well, the other thing is, that comes to mind is like walking on this grass, is the concern is being sprayed with Roundup or like that. Like, so it's like to, how do I decide? Like, am I going to walk walk on that grass.
I know. Isn't that just so silly that we have to consider that? Is there going to be
Yes.
glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup? Is there going to be glyphosate all over that grass? And like, how do I
Yeah.
weigh the benefits? So that's a great question. I don't know the answer to it other than, they usually don't spray dirt. And so, you know what? Yeah. So they usually spray dirt. They'll spray grass and rocks. Like, I mean, what I'm from the experts, you can be grounding, like standing on, some rocks, like decorative rocks that are in a landscape. And those probably are also not sprayed. And again, crazy that we have to have this conversation, but you brought up a really good point. Like there are things in
Right.
our environment that are not doing us any favors.
Like I live close to the beach and sometimes I'll just walk like right on the shore, like with the waters, like I'll just go for a walk and I just literally connect with the ocean, connect with the sand, and then I look at where I'm at, but I'm just not looking right in front. I'm looking at everything, like just being a part of this world, like just being a part of like the environment and just connecting with it. And I tell you, it's like a vacation. It's like so rejuvenating.
It really is.
And it's like such a vacation. What are your thoughts about, do you think that eating organic matters for preventing cancer?
I do. I think it matters much more than we have been notified that it matters. So yes, I think it's really important. We spray our products, our produce so much in this country, and it's usually sprayed again as a drying agent, glyphosate, right before it's harvested. So, it might be, sprayed throughout the growing process, but then it's heavily sprayed right at the end. And that doesn't come off. So it goes into your food. You can't wash it off. You can, there's probably experts on Instagram who are going to say, yeah, if you use this and this, it's going to, but if it grows with it, it's growing into it. So yeah, the food is really challenging. So yes, I believe in organic, but I also am very sensitive to how much it costs to eat organic food. Prices are up on everything. So here's how I make my food dollar really go as far as it possibly can is I go to farmers markets and I just Google farmers market near me. And I actually even do this when I'm traveling and I'll go grab apples. So, whatever it is, I will make sure I get fresh produce. If it's not organic, I do scrub it pretty good when I get it home. I've just got a, scrub brush. I might use vinegar. I might use baking soda to try to get off as much as I possibly can. But for the most part, I'm buying our food at farmers markets. And then I also have a garden. And your listeners might say, yeah, but I have a brown thumb. You know what? I hear ya. I grew up on a farm, so I do not have a brown thumb, but you could get basil from Trader Joe's and put it on your kitchen counter and have fresh basil. Like start small. There's nothing wrong with small beginnings. And then from the Trader Joe's basil, you get a nice pot at the garden center and you start to grow some lettuce and more herbs. Herbs are nutritional powerhouses. I wish people understood more the power of herbs, and just adding like a snip here and a snip there can really, give a huge nutrient boost to whatever you're eating.
I love that. You're inspiring me because I would consider myself to have a brown thumb. And I think the pots is such a doable way. And so, yeah.
It's such a doable way. Yeah. And then you can move them around. Like if the sun, like as the summer goes on, if it's not sunny over there anymore, you keep moving them so you can have a harvest, through end of October, depending on where you live.
So we also wanted to know, what are your thoughts on sugar consumption and cancer? So we've heard some people say there's a link. I've actually, talked to people that are like oncology nurses and they're like, oh, the snacks we have for the patients are Oreos and Lorna Doones. And so in conventional, it doesn't seem to be a thing. They're like, no, it doesn't matter what you eat. But so we're just curious on what your thoughts are and what you've learned.
Yeah. So there are some major changes I've made to my diet post cancer. First of all, I would say, I maybe didn't drink a lot of alcohol, but I know that there is a pretty big uptick in cancer, breast cancer recurrence, or breast cancer in general with every drink that you have. I don't remember the actual statistics right now, but I can get them for you. And that was enough for me to think, like, we've all been there. We have homes, we've got kids, we work. I'd come home from work and I would just say, I need a drink, and I'd have a beer, I'd have a glass of Chardonnay. And, I don't do that very often anymore. So maybe my 5 days a week of a glass of wine has gone down to one every 10 days. To me, it was a risk I just wasn't willing to take anymore. And so now I do different things. So I have, beautiful glassware, and now I find a nice fizzy drink, with a Perrier and maybe a little, pour over of cran, whatever it is. So I still celebrate the end of the day, but I'm just not consuming as much alcohol, which of course is also a sugar, which is going to drive inflammation. I don't think you're ever going to get a straight answer on sugar and cancer. So what I will say is, in my experience, I feel better cutting back dramatically on sugar. I don't ever want to have cancer again. And does it mean I never have sugar? Absolutely not. I still have sugar every day, but I'm no longer having copious amounts 3 or 4 times a day and only thinking of myself as what size jean I'm in, or what I weigh on the scale. So to me, the sugar has absolutely nothing to do with my weight and everything to do with driving inflammation. I'm still recovering. It's been 3 years since my last surgery, almost 3 years, and I'm still tired. I mean, my body went through a lot, and the more inflammation I have in my body, at least in my experience, I don't sleep. I'll have hot flashes. I'll be sweating. I'm uncomfortable, and I just feel better when I'm cutting back on sugar and alcohol.
So you notice a correlation even with your hot flashes and things like that with those things?
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, because I was on hormones, because I'm 59 now. And so I was experiencing dry eyes where I was on all kinds of drops and ointments and you name it. And that can also be a symptom of menopause or perimenopause. So my doctor had me on hormone therapy. And I remember her saying one time, oh, the day you have to come off of this, I just don't know what's going to happen to your eyes. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to keep going as long as I can. Then I get diagnosed with breast cancer. And I basically was immediate, like that day I went into menopause because I no longer had the hormones. And I didn't sleep for 3 years. I didn't sleep for longer than 2 hours at a time because of hot flashes. Now that's a menopause thing, but it's also my poor little body had 4 surgeries in 5 months, and it was just a lot. So I think between the two, I just didn't sleep for longer than probably an hour and a half, 2 hours for 3 years. And if I had a glass of wine to try to help manage myself or manage my stress, I didn't sleep at all.
Yeah, a lot of people do talk about that. Definitely impacts your sleep very badly. Yeah. Okay. And then so we also wanted to ask you, what role do you think stress plays in cancer? Like we kind of touched a little bit upon it, but is it a big player here?
Yeah, I think it's, I'm going to say it's probably in the top 2. Yeah, I think stress, we have a stress epidemic in our world, in our country, in our homes. And I've interviewed enough experts now to realize we can't take life as seriously as we're taking it, where we get so ramped up about somebody cutting you off in traffic or the barista putting foam on your cappuccino when you ask for no foam. Like, we have to calm the heck down. And I think we're all just, again, the way the world is, we're watching too much news. And I used to be on the news. Like, I can tell you, we're watching too much news. We're reading too much news. We're headline educated. That level of stress has to go somewhere. And I don't know where it's going to go. Different experts will tell you different things. But for me, when I got really ramped up, I didn't sleep. That's a sign to my body, for my immune system, to say, if you're not sleeping, we're not working. So if your immune system is not fully functioning and you're resting and you're hydrated and you're eating good food and you're laughing, you're hugging people that you love, like your body's not going to be fully engaged in doing what God made it to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. So many of us are trapped in that sympathetic state. And it's like we can't switch back. It's really difficult. And we've had people we did an episode with a breathwork coach, and we had a lot of people comment on how they realized, like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm ever in the parasympathetic state, which is very upsetting. What are actually some things that we could do to try to get into that state? Like, what are things that work for you?
Yeah, there's a few things. And I love breathwork. I suck at it. I'm just going to say that with all sincerity, is that I forget about it. And I'm not a good traditional meditator. I keep putting it on my list and I keep bypassing it. So what I do is I put my hand on my stomach and I take a lot of deep breaths. I make my exhale longer than my inhale, which helps to calm down my nervous system. I do a lot of what I call a walking meditation or a prayer walk, where I'll just take a 10-minute mental health break. I leave my phone at home. Nobody's going to need me for 10 minutes like that. That is a little bit too much ego if I think the world can't can't, work without me for 10 minutes. Leave my phone at home. And I just put my hand on my stomach as I'm walking, make sure I'm breathing deeply in and out. I'm not taking chest breaths because we don't have a lot of lung tissue up in the chest area. And then I try to reconnect with my body. So I might just do a little bit of stretching. I keep a dish towel next to my computer monitor and I'll just, kind of stretch back a little bit. I'll do some lymphatic things. I have an issue with lymph flow because I had a lymph node removed. And so I'll just maybe do some lymphatic massage, which you can find on YouTube, or I'll even just lay down. I've read enough about this and talked to enough experts that just laying down for like 5 minutes can reset your nervous system. I also love legs up the wall, which is exactly legs up the wall.
Yeah.
It's a yoga. I just did this yesterday in a yoga class, put my hand on my stomach, legs up the wall, and just chilled out and thought about the 3 things I was grateful for. Completely reset my nervous system.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love how you said, I don't meditate in the traditional sense, because I love that you're saying that and you're showing all these other examples, because I think that a lot of people like, oh, I suck at meditating. I can't meditate, because they're thinking that they have to, sit on a mat with their legs crossed and be like, and it doesn't have to. I mean, you could do that if that works. That's cool. But meditating could also be going for a run, and just like I go out for a walk with my dogs for 30 minutes and we walk and I just look at the trees and I just really look at it. Sometimes I even stop at a tree and just think like, wow, you're so beautiful. Like, look at this tree, right? Like just connecting. That's meditation. That's, sometimes I have a lot of clients and I'm in my car going from this appointment to that appointment. And if there's a break, I'll pull up in a center or somewhere where there's a tree. I'll park right in front of the tree. And then I just recline. I have a little, right, like the thing that you use in the airport, the little pillow thing. And I just recline my chair and I just stay, and I'll just take a nap. I'll just like a 5-minute nap, 10-minute.
Oh my gosh. I love that idea.
Yeah. I just pull over wherever I'm at, whatever neighborhood I'm at in between appointments. And I just talk about resetting. Like, it just like, boom, I have long days and I get that I have a lot of moving parts. And, we were just at the conference in Las Vegas for the international.
Oh, for the functional medicine. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a woman, Dr. Neff, who talked about self-compassion. And I just think that all these things that we're talking about right now, all the things that you're talking about, is just self-compassion, having self-respect, respecting our own being and managing that being and supporting our being, right? In the passage of where we are, period.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Self-compassion.
Absolutely.
It's a gift.
It's true.
Absolutely. So let me see. Being mindful of our time today.
I love that. Way to throw that in.
So, Deborah, what are 2 simple things that a person can do today to reduce the risk of developing cancer? Or maybe also, if we can just add an additional, maybe also 2 simple things that a person undergoing cancer treatment may consider. Like, 2 simple, like little things that you can share for somebody that, is like, okay, I'm trying not to get cancer, or someone that may have been in your situation that will help ease their journey.
Well, I would say if you're in the journey, accept help. I've never been the person who was really good at saying, hey, could you help me get my luggage in the overhead bin? Could you help me? Whatever. And I had to get good at saying yes to help, or even saying to people. It was hard for my husband because he's Army guy. Like, he's a military. He needed a mission and I didn't have a mission. We were just trying to figure out like the path. And I would have to say to him every day, here's what I need from you today. Can you make dinner? Can you get me flowers, whatever it was? Can you drive me to the hospital? And I think just being really clear with people is in itself a gift. And I was blessed to be surrounded by people who did send me flowers and dropped off meals to my house. And I had I had prayer warriors.
Wow.
Our pastors came over from church every time I had a surgery and anointed me with oil and prayed over me. So my heart goes out to people who don't have that community. So if you don't have that community, there are some resources where people can like coach you and mentor you and be there for you, maybe even virtually, but that, and ask for help. So I would say that would probably be my biggest thing. If you're going through it, is it's okay to be vulnerable. People, it's a gift that they get to help you. And that took me a while to get that around in my head. As far as avoiding cancer, it's a big question, isn't it? And I would start small and I would focus on two things. And you're probably going to be surprised that neither of these are food, but kind of dovetailing on Dr. Josh Axe, who said mindset is more important than diet.
Wow.
How is that possible that the thoughts that I think, the gratitude I feel, or the anger or the unforgiveness that I feel is going to impact my body more than food? Seriously. Wow. Okay. So I learned this from somebody who was battling a much more challenging cancer, and her journey was pretty rough. And she kept a gratitude journal, and every day she wrote down 3 things. And I think she was up to like 15,000 notations of things that she was grateful for. So keeping a gratitude journal, it's nice to have one in your head, but recent research has shown that actually writing out with your hand onto a piece of paper can just change you in many ways and change your brain. So writing down, even if it's one thing, you know, like you woke up today and you can see, like, I'm grateful for that. And then laughter, another not food related. As a nutritionist, it's kind of crazy again that I'm suggesting this, but laugh more each day. I remember reading a study a million years ago when I just was getting started in my practice that kids laugh about 200 to 300 times a day and adults laugh about 10 to 12.
Big difference.
Big difference. And so with that laughter, we release oxytocin, which is a natural killer cell for cancer and other cells that have gone rogue. So sometimes I fake laugh.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, so somebody tells a joke that maybe isn't super funny, but I will give it a pretty good belly laugh because I know I haven't hit my quota for the day.
Sometimes I do fake smiles. Like if I driving and I'm like paying attention to what I'm thinking about, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's amazing.
I like that.
I love that. It's
Right?
amazing.
It
Changes your
it.
whole,
You can't think
your whole
bad
head.
thoughts and
Changes your
smile
mindset.
at the same time.
Isn't that the truth right there?
Right? That's one thing. And just about the laughter thing, I got to share this quick story with you guys. And who knows, this could help any single mom out there. When I first became a single mom, I have 4 children. And my youngest son at that time, he was like 4 years old, and 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my oldest was like 11. I have 4 kids. And it was the first Thanksgiving that I was going to experience as a single parent. Now, my kids, we always used to go to his dad's sister's house because everybody would go. So of course I didn't want to take that away from my kids. I was like, wanted them to go with their dad, you know, and I wasn't going to be there. And Thanksgiving to me is one of my favorite holidays because Thanksgiving is about food and gathering. There's no about buying the presents or anything. It's just about being together and sharing a meal and being grateful. And I just love Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday. And I was like, oh, so thinking up ahead, I thought to myself, I am about to hit a wall really hard. Once those kids leave with their dad, I was going to be alone by myself. And, you know, I don't have any siblings. I have my mom. I did, you know, I was like, wow, this is just going to be so hard. So before, like weeks before, I booked a show at the Count Basie Theater for a comedy. It was a comedy expo. And they had like 5 different comedians that won something, and they were doing this whole show. And I got myself, I bought a ticket in advance. I got like, it was the second row center. I got myself like the best seat. I got to that theater. I ordered a screwdriver. I went to my seat and I'm sitting, and there's like, you know, people, I am sure I was the only person in that theater that was there as a solo act.
Probably. Yeah.
People are there with their spouses or with a group of people. I'm there as a solo act. So I'm between like these groups of people and I'm those groups of people. And I felt really awkward because, you know, I was like, really, I'm like, all right, I look like a total loser right now, but whatever, I don't care. And I'm drinking my screwdriver. And let me tell you, by the time that girl got to her 3rd joke, I was like, ah! I was just laughing my butt off, high-fiving the people. Like it just, and
brilliant.
I set myself up for success just because I knew I had to force myself to laugh, or I would have been home in a complete dump of depression.
What a great idea you had. I would never think to do that. I love it. But I'm going to think about it now. If I go through something really rough, I'm going to book myself a comedy
Me
show.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. And have a
That too.
screwdriver.
Or go on your phone or you can just
You're right.
watch
You
the
could
show
just go
too
on YouTube. Yeah.
and watch
Mhm.
a comedy skit and just
Right.
laugh. So
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I love that. That's a great idea. So basically,
yeah,
you just planned
I
ahead
agree.
because you knew that there was some
Yeah. I
sadness
was
Mhm.
like
like,
in
iceberg
the road
straight
coming
ahead.
up.
Yeah, so I
Wow.
just wanted to share that because that's exactly in alignment what you were just talking about.
Yeah. Thank you. I will not forget that story.
Yeah, and thank you
That
for
is
all
really
your
good.
stories.
Yes,
Yeah.
Deborah, we so appreciate you coming on the show today. And
Yeah.
you provided so much good hope, I think, for people that are suffering with cancer and then people that are trying to prevent it or afraid. I think you eased everyone's minds. Amazing that you really think that mindset and laughter could be the two biggest things that'll help us.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? I mean,
Amazing.
especially as you said, coming from a nutritionist
Yeah.
like yourself, that's what you would say, which is great. So those are good things to keep in mind. Everyone to know that you can connect with Deborah on Instagram. Her handle is Why Did I Get Cancer? And then she also has a website, whydidigetcancer.com, and it's full of great resources on there. And then please listen to her podcast, Why Did I Get Cancer, on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, because it's amazing. There are so many great experts you have on there, and it's very inspiring. So thank you again.
Thank you. Loved our conversation. You two are just
Thank you.
powerhouses. So great to meet you. Okay, I take a fair amount of supplements. I admit it. But I'm also starting to use them on my skin topically. And one of the ones I use is Vitamin C Serum from the Body Deli. After a long day in the sun, I'm surfing, I'm swimming, I'm walking with friends. I just feel like sometimes my skin needs a little extra superfood boost at night. So I'll put this vitamin C serum on at night, put a moisturizer on top. I feel like my skin just looks more luminous, and it certainly just looks a little brighter in the morning. You can use the code ENOS15 to get 15% off. Go to bodydeli.com, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey y'all, can you do me a favor today and go and leave a review of this podcast? I know that the more great reviews, wink, wink, emphasis on great, reviews that I get, along with more downloads and more subscribers, that pushes this podcast out to people who might normally not even find it. And the reason I started this podcast and my real heart for starting this podcast is that I needed this information. It wasn't available. And so I started a podcast so that I could be a blessing to others. So you're a blessing to me just by being here. And again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your positive reviews and all of the notes that you send me. And also just wanted to say, hey, keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. And if you need medical advice, please reach out to your team. That is going to be just the best source for you because they know you. So again, I hope you enjoy this podcast.